So hi, we've got Keith Wasserstrom with us, and I'm excited about this new initiative for our group members on Ask Daphna, All Things Leadership, to actually get to know the stories behind the people, get to know the people themselves instead of kind of using the cover of Facebook to maybe hide behind a little bit. So let's open the curtain and hear from the people who are in the group, their stories and what they're all about. So I'm really excited to have you today here. Keith, thank you for joining us and being the brave pioneer. And I'd love to hear really like maybe one or two highlights from your life. I know you've got interesting stories, so share one with us.
All right, so you can cut me short whenever you would like. So I was a partner at some of the major law firms, some of the world's largest law firms, Baker McKenzie, there's Hogan Lovells. These are major law firms. And I became a city commissioner in the city of Hollywood, which is between Fort Lauderdale and Miami in Florida. And I had a client that came before the city commission, and I disclosed at the commission meeting that this is my client and I can't vote. You know, I have a conflict of interest. And the city awarded the contract to my client. And then after the meeting, my city attorney gave me a conflict of interest form to fill out explaining why I had a conflict. I filled it out, I signed it. And then, you know, maybe 6 months later or so, the state investigated to find out why the city granted the contract to my client, suggesting that I did something corrupt to, you know, steer it to my client, which was not the case. They eventually arrested me. We had a 2-week trial all about this corruption. Wow. And at the end of the trial, we didn't even put on defense. The judge dismissed the charges. He said, this is crazy. Keith did everything he wanted to do. He disclosed the conflict. He didn't vote. He didn't make any money. You know, my contract even said I couldn't make any money in Hollywood. And the client actually hired another lawyer to represent them in Hollywood. So it was very cut and dry. The problem was the form, the conflict of interest form that I signed. The state argued that, okay, he might not be corrupt, but he might have made a false statement on the conflict of interest form. So we want to show that to the jury. So the judge said, fine. So they called in the jury and they told them that they did not have to consider count 1, which was the corruption, just whether he made a false statement on the form. But he left the impression with the jury that I actually might have pled out count 1 because, you know, if you watch any of these crime shows, you know, crime, Law and Order type of stuff, nobody gets the major charge dismissed and then they go for the secondary stuff to the jury. Usually there's some kind of plea deal and then they'll take the secondary charges to the jury. So the jury really had the impression that I was guilty of count 1 because I pled guilty or something like that. So they said, okay, you must have lied to cover up the crime. So they actually convicted me of making a false statement on a crime, and there is no false statement. Wow. I mean, this was 2006. So there's this, you know, the same exact statements true then, true today, and everything else. So unfortunately, and we know what the jury was thinking because they were interviewed after the case. This was a big case for whatever reason. And they said that, you know, we had questions, we needed more information, and the judge said we can't, you know, he wouldn't give us any more answers or any more information. So we felt like we had to convict. Yeah. And in America, you know, you're typically innocent until proven guilty. So they just had the impression that I was guilty. So anyway, so I ended up losing my law license. I went to jail.
Went to jail? You actually spent time in jail?
I went to jail, yeah. I had a 60-day sentence. I did it in 40 because I was on good behavior. So I had a crazy experience. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, it messed up my life. For 2 years, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. I actually got a job at the Miami Heat games as the kosher supervisor at their kosher stand. So, and there, my current boss, this is going back 5 or 6 years, my current boss, you know, ordered a corned beef sandwich or whatever. And, you know, he said, what are you doing here? And he thought I might own the stand or something like that. I said, no, I'm just working here. He said, why are you working here? He goes, I said, I need a job. So he goes, you're too smart to be selling hot dogs. Why don't you come work for me? So again, that was 5 years ago. And I've been here in-house with my, it's a family office. And truthfully, you know, 20 years ago, this was my dream job, to be in-house in a family office. Wow. So God works in mysterious ways, and I ended up exactly where I wanted to be. There's a crazy roller coaster ride getting here.
Journey. How did it feel for you at the time? Because I can imagine you talk about it now and it's over and you're where you want to be, but I can only imagine the level of stress and anxiety and uncertainty when you're going through all of this. And for me, what comes up is like, this is not fair. How can this be happening to me? This is not fair.
Well, the crazy thing is after the vote, I actually went to Israel for a month to become a rabbi.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the intro also.
Right. So while I was in Israel, I had a summer associate. He used my computer, and unfortunately, it crashed. The hard drive crashed while he was using it. He didn't tell me about it. When I came home back to the office and it didn't work, we realized it crashed, and we tried to get it fixed because, as a lawyer, all my client files are on my hard drive. So we sent it to the most expensive places in the world. There's a place in California called Drive Savers, and we tried to get them to fix it, and they said they couldn't. So then when the state was doing their investigation, they wanted all of my files. They wanted, all my emails, my documents, everything that had to do with my client. So I literally, did a search for my client's name and sent them all the emails, all the documents, everything. It was boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. And I gave them to the state. And about 6 months later, they come back and say, hey, why is it that we're missing 6 months of stuff? I said, oh yeah, I forgot about that. My hard drive crashed and we lost everything. But here's my hard drive. If you guys can recover the data, that'd be amazing because my clients are looking for it. So they felt that I destroyed my hard drive. This is prior to the Hillary Clinton bit where we just destroyed her hard drive. I was trying to save my hard drive, but they thought that I might have been trying to cover up something, hiding the smoking gun. So they really had the impression I was guilty, had something to hide, and that's why they ended up bringing the charges and going after me, I believe, in the first place. So when I remember I was at a Florida League of Cities, I was on the board of the Florida League of Cities. So I was at a Florida League of Cities meeting in Tampa, and all of a sudden I was in my hotel room and I get a phone call from my lawyer saying, we got an ethics opinion from the state of Florida. So, and we sent it to the state attorney saying, look, if the ethics committee says I did not act unethical, then how could my actions be criminal? Because criminal is worse than unethical. So we sent him the letter, and he sounded like he was buying it. But then I get a call from my lawyer saying that the state decided to press charges. They're going to arrest me. I had to make plans to turn myself in, everything else. Just remember, sting up. And they always tell you to sit down when you're getting bad news. It's an amazing thing. I never really understood it, but I had to sit down. I just felt like either flushed or whatever. I was like a little lightheaded, dizzy. I felt it rise up, to my ears. And I had to sit down. It was just like unbelievable. I really wasn't worried about it. It was just a pain in the neck. I mean, just to have to deal with this. My expenses cost me $500,000 in legal fees. Obviously, I had to shut down my law firm. It was and for 2 years I couldn't get a job. It's very hard as a convicted felon to get a job. So I definitely can commiserate with those people who are trying. And the worst thing about it in my situation is, I'm innocent. I'm 100% innocent. But everybody who's guilty always says they're innocent. So who's going to believe me over somebody else? So it's just it's a weird thing. And I had friends, unfortunately, who, their wives were going through cancer, right? I have a friend whose wife died from a brain tumor. And so they get sympathy and well-deserved sympathy, and I feel for them. And my situation is nothing compared to that at all. So it's just a weird thing. I'm glad I'm over it. I'm on the other side of it. And it's been a great experience. You really find out who your friends are. And the good news is I sort of went into the situation with a stellar reputation. So nobody really, the people who knew me didn't believe it at all. They feel I went through, I got, tossed through the ringer, and, whatever. I moved on, and because I didn't have a job and couldn't get a job, I ended up starting a company, Warranty of America. I got involved with other businesses because I just had, had time and, whatever. So everything works out, at the end.
Okay, so because our group is about leadership, what did you learn about leadership through that experience and anything and everything else that you've been through in your life? What is one leadership lesson you would like to share that comes up for you?
Well, you hear this a lot that, if you're going through tough times, just keep going, and things go, sometimes you'll be on the top of the world. And I was on top of the world. I used to go to Israel every year. I was the chairman of the American Israel Chamber of Commerce. And I remember I was, was a vice mayor of the city of Hollywood. I went to Israel to become a rabbi, and they missed the interpretation was lost. So they introduced me as the lieutenant governor of Florida. I was on the cover of Mishpacha magazine. I was interviewed.
I don't know how much of it often. I know that is. I have my issues with that magazine. I'll be honest.
But and I was interviewed on TV because it was an internet smicha program. So it was the first time online to become a rabbi.
Wow.
So it was an amazing group of people because there was like 30 of us. And there was a mathematics professor from New England. There was literally a rocket scientist from Germany. There was a orthopedic surgeon from Texas. I mean, all over the world in all professions, all just different walks of life. There were some really, really religious rabbis, and there was guys like me who, couldn't really read the Hebrew. So the program was in English, which is why I did it. It was just an amazing thing. So I'm saying so I felt like I was on the top of the world. I was a partner, one of the youngest partners ever at Baker McKenzie, which is the world's largest law firm. I was heading up a corporate securities department at a new firm. I was at the top of the world. And then literally, a month later, I'm on the bottom.
Wow.
Right.
In 1 minute, like that.
Right. And now, it took me a while. And there was times where we really, we were looking at our bank account. We had a mortgage payment to make, and there was no money there. And miraculously, something happened. I got a tax refund. I got an investor decided to buy me out. Different things that happened to make it. And it's just an amazing thing. Now I'm on the other side of it, and I can look back on it, and I'm still smiling about it. I got to write a book about it eventually. But it's just, as far as a leadership thing is, to always, I think, be positive. There's no reason to dwell on the negative. I mean, people will tell me that I dwelled on it because I appealed a dozen times and whatever, trying to sort of reclaim my good name. And I probably wasted a lot of time and effort doing that, but it was probably cathartic to some extent as well. But, you need to focus on what's at hand, deal with the problems you have today. Don't worry about things in the past. And things, the good will come and the bad will come, and they'll pass. And you just need to be positive, optimistic, and realize that the bad stuff is not going to stay forever, and the good stuff's not going to stay forever either. So plan, be smart about it, and be loyal. I mean, I was always nice, and was always very, very loyal. And having a loyal employees is it's a challenge to get these type of employees. So when you find them, you keep them.
That's amazing, because part of the research that I did in my master's thesis on leadership is really how these challenging situations, these really life-changing situations affect us in terms of our leadership. And one thing that came out very strongly is that when you're going through it, it's really in that mode of just pushing on, just getting through. You do whatever you need to do to get through. And then when you're through it, you can kind of sit back, and almost part of the therapeutic process is processing it, reflecting on it, thinking about it, talking about it, and kind of being able to step back and say, what did I learn from it, or what did I gain from it, or what did it give me? So I think you've described that, like pushing on, just kind of one foot in front of the other, really, really well. What would you say, if you can, I don't know if it's too soon, but to say, what did you learn from it, or what did you gain from it, even in terms of where you are today?
Well, the funny thing is my entire family thought I was crazy because it really wasn't negatively impacting my life. I still had a smile every day. I had a lot of friends who supported me. And so my family convinced me to go to a psychiatrist because something must be wrong with me if I'm so happy and so upbeat about life. I'll tell you, we were mentioning the tragedies or the challenges that leaders had. There was Malcolm Gladwell. I forget which one of his books. All of his books were excellent, but one of them had a whole section on presidents, and an amazing sort of a high percentage of presidents lost a parent, usually their father, at a young age, which makes a challenge for them. They typically, there's less money for the family. They typically have to go to work and bring in money for the family. And there's just challenges not having your father around. So my boss, actually, he, a week before his bar mitzvah, his father was sitting on his bed telling him that they're excited, one more week. And his father died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Right then and there. And my boss is an amazing person, by the way, and he had such adversity. His father had a business with his brothers, and he really was the main guy behind the business. And when he passed away, the two other brothers, who were not as good at running the business as my boss's father, they said, we'll take care of it, and we'll take care of you too. We're going to take care of your family. You're going to be a third all the time. And they didn't. And he ended up suing, as a kid, had to sue his uncles to get his share of the business. And and he really was struggling. He was tossed out. He lost his house, with his mom. And now he's, almost a billionaire. So it's an amazing thing. Adversity does, I think, make you stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It is something that kind of pushes us. It almost shows us what we're capable of, right? What we're able to get through. And just talking about books, one of my favorite authors is Michael Singer. I don't know if you've come across any of his stuff.
I have. Yeah, very nice.
So it just reminded me, because he was also arrested at some point, completely out of the blue, didn't understand what from. And he describes the whole story in the Surrender Experiment, excellent book, The Untethered Soul also. But he takes us through his story and how he was able to kind of remove his identity of who he is from what was happening around him in these crazy, challenging times.
Right. Okay. I see that you were distracted there for a minute. Do you need to, is there something? No, well, somebody knocked on the window because I was too loud, so I lowered the volume. We're okay if you want to continue. Cool. I don't know how long you want to go.
I think we can start wrapping up, and maybe just do what is your message, Keith? What is your message to whoever's going to be watching this? What do you want to offer? What do you want to ask? What do you want to give?
Well, I think it's great that what you're doing, which is getting to know the people you're connected with, because, I have 20,000 people connected with on LinkedIn. And, people, every once in a while, people say, hey, I see you're connected to this guy. Can you hook me up with him? I said, sure. I might not know him from Adam, but I'm happy to do it. But it's great. And there was a project I was working on. Somebody like you also brought, it was their project. And their idea was to have a book written by 20 each, there'd be 20 different chapters, and it would be 20 people that he found on LinkedIn. And it was just, it was kind of interesting. We all got to know each other. He ended up, failing in his mission, and we all gave him a deposit for the books, which we never got back. But it was a good idea. And again, there's a couple, every once in a while, I get a new connection on LinkedIn, and they say, I want to know more about you. Can we have a call? And I think it's good. I mean, you never know what people's interests are, what they're doing, on the side, other than what's written on their resume on LinkedIn. So it's good to get to know people better. And, like this story here, you were not going to see it on LinkedIn, but somebody who's going through trouble, or somebody knows somebody's going through trouble, I'm happy to talk to them if they want to, need a sort of a lift or some advice on how to get on the other side of the bad situation they're going through. And I do believe, that, again, I'm a religious Jew, and I believe God everything for the best. So it might not be, when you're going through it, it might not be, you might not see everything, but at the end of the day, you look back and say, well, you know what? It all worked out for the best. Yeah, amazing. And I think that's just such an awesome thing to hear, and to see you kind of on the other side saying you're doing what you're doing and what you love and where you actually wanted to be. And yes, maybe the journey you had to get through and go through to get there has been rough, but to be able to recognize that this is where you want to be, and as you say, give that message of hope and inspiration to other people as well. So thank you. Thanks so much for that. And for everybody else, thanks for watching. Please ask your questions. Any questions, thoughts, comments that you have for Keith or myself, we'd love to hear from you, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments.